So these three red flags have come up so many times with many of my clients, and I want to talk to you about them today because they may not be red flags. They may not be deal breakers. Okay. And yes, I am all about bye time. I'm all about it because I don't want you to waste time. I'm really adamant about God, universe wants to deliver your person. So, you definitely want to move someone out of the way to receive the right person, right? But that being said, there might be some things that come up that you think are a deal breaker, red flag, and it's really not. They might be yellow flags. They may be more like proceed with caution. Okay, so we're talking about three today that have come up so many times. And number one, long distance. When someone says, that you find out that they live far away from you. And now far away is relative, right? So like let's just say anything more than an hour away from you driving. Okay. I keep seeing it over and over and have so much evidence that long distance is not a deal breaker. It is not. Because, and this is when it's not, okay? This is when you have to really notice their effort and are their actions aligning with their words. So many of my clients have had successful, amazing relationships with men who live in a different city. And so, or actually, one of them are now dating someone in a different country. Like this keeps happening. And this is where you have to be open minded. Okay. Don't be so like, no, if it's not local, it's my bite. You are wrong. Really wrong. And these are the moments as you're listening to something like, leaning into this podcast, you're hearing it with an open mind, open heart, hopefully. This can truly change your life. Just as one shift. So when you meet somebody and they say they live X, wherever they are, a different city from you, I don't want you to just say bye-bye. Instead, ask more questions. Probe, see if you guys connect. Because if someone that really wants to, if it's a priority for them to find their forever partner, right? And they value that, and you guys end up really connecting and emotionally connecting, you're aligned, they will make you a priority. They will, if that's something that is so important to them. And then you have to watch and see how they do show up for you and take that action. And it's not just on them. Like in the beginning of dating, yes, they should be the one going to you on the first date. But like if you guys are so far away, you can also make an effort. And at the end of the day, you guys are a team. And the way that you guys, how you do a relationship, you should show up like that from day one. You're not playing games. And so when someone says long distance, a lot of people are like, oh, it's red flag, bye bye. I disagree 100%. I have seen successful couples and they started off long distance, okay? And they end up moving wherever they decide as a team where they go, okay? Number two, faith. Faith is another one that I feel like sometimes people are like, I talk to so many of my clients and they're like, okay, if they are not this religion, like their religion or whatever they are, bye. And I'm like, no, wait a second, hold on. And actually, like I can really personally speak to it too because of my husband. When I first met him, he was agnostic. And so just in case anyone doesn't know what that means, it's like you believe in a higher power, but you don't really know exactly, like you don't really have a name for it or a label. And so what really, and I grew up Catholic, even though like I don't really go to church a lot at the time when I was there, and I still don't. But for me, I definitely consider myself very spiritual. And so when I spoke to him, I was just curious to see where he was coming from. And I would ask questions. So it wasn't like he's like, oh, I'm agnostic. And then I'm like, okay, bye. It wasn't like that. I was very like, let me ask more questions. Let me, see, oh, have you always been like that? He's like, oh, no, actually, I grew up like this and that. He had his whole story. And what I loved about him was hearing how, like, he was just curious about me and my faith. He wasn't judgmental. He wasn't like trying to prove me wrong or prove that there is no God or anything like that. And what's so interesting and beautiful was where our relationship is now, 17 years married together. We pray every day with our kids. Like, faith is a huge part of our relationship and our family. And we did switch to Episcopalian because, like, I don't know, they're just more like liberal, and I love, like, the female priests, and I love homosexuals, and I love that they can be all part of the church, and it's okay if you got divorced, you can still take communion or whatever. Like, all those things I love. I just love the openness and love everybody energy. So we spoke about it from day one. About, I asked him, I said, if I wanted my kids to be baptized, how would he feel? And he was so open to that. And we raised our kids, and had them in the Episcopalian religion, the church. And it was just aligned to us. And so the point is, if someone were to say to you they have a different religion than you, I don't think it's a bye-bye moment. It really isn't. It's a moment for you to get more curious and ask more questions. The energy of this is just so much curiosity. I do think that, like, the culture that we live in, it's like, forget it, like, bye. No, and I and I know you're like, Jackie, you're all about the bye-bye. I go, I am about the bye-bye, but it has to be super clear that it is a deal breaker. You see what I mean? And so, like, I feel like there's a part of you that may perhaps want to protect yourself, or you may be so guarded or jaded that you're just like, nothing's gonna work. Like, why even bother? Like, why even ask questions? Get out of my face. And, like, that's not what I'm about. I am about, really leading with your heart on your sleeve and seeing if there's an emotional connection, if you are aligned. And that requires patience. That requires curiosity and space for someone to really openly share who they are. And so you can't come from a place of judgment and, quickly jump to, like, jump the gun and be like, my fucker. No, like, that's not the energy I want you to come in from. Okay. And number 3, okay, this is the other third thing that always has come up so many times. And it came up for me too, on my first date with Will, my husband, right? If someone tells you they just got out of a breakup, sometimes I think a lot of you may be like, oh, my, and it's not. And it's really not. This is really a time for you to get curious and to be like, oh my gosh, when was the breakup? Like, ask questions. And, like, if they say, oh, actually, Will was a month before I met him, he had just gotten out of a breakup. And I'm like, oh, how long were you guys together? 10 months. I'm like, oh, that must have been, like, hard. Like, are you still kind of getting over it? Notice the energy. Notice how I'm curious. Notice how I'm making space for him to share his story and his experience. And he was like, no. Like, we just wanted different things. I definitely wanted to get married one day and have kids, and she didn't really want that. And we just realized we didn't want the same thing. So it was a very mutual breakup. And I was like, oh, perfect. But normally I would have probably jumped to conclusions and been like, oh yeah, this guy's not going to be ready for anything. Right. And so those 3, I'm going to say them again. Number 1, the long distance. Number 2, the faith. And number 3, a recent breakup. Those 3, I feel like, take a beat. Don't jump to, like, oh my God, it's a deal breaker. Might. No, it's not. Really get curious. There are many more different kind of things like this that come up. So I want you to understand, that it's really on you to, like, trust your own intuition. Give yourself and that person some grace. Like, it's not about judging and throwing away and, like, quickly. I really cherish and I appreciate, and I'm so grateful for when people come across my path. I really want to connect with that person. Like, even now, like, even with you, as you're listening to this podcast, and when I listen, I have so many calls, like, I do these free discovery calls, and I talk to women all the time. I'm not like, oh, whatever, you're not going to buy the program, get out of my face. It's not like that. I really come from a place of truly connecting with somebody. and seeing if we're aligned and seeing, hey, like there's a reason our paths have crossed. And I think if you kind of lead with that energy of, there's a reason our paths have crossed, you're never going to feel like this was a waste of time. You're never going to feel like, what's the point? You're always going to take away some value from it. And some, wow, I learned something from that, or I served a purpose for that, or just coming from a lot of gratitude. And so I feel like when you lead with that, it will help you create that space for real connection. And I don't think it's gonna be easy. I don't think it's gonna be easy for a lot of people to do this. It's something that I could tell you, and it could sound simple, but it's never easy. But I believe in you because you're listening to this. I believe that it's possible for you to challenge yourself and grow and call yourself out and be like, well, shit, maybe I should give that person a call that I sent my invite to because of this reason, whatever it is. And you know what? Yes, do that. Like maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking of somebody and be like, oh my gosh, like that person told me they're Jewish and I'm not Jewish and I assumed whatever. I assumed. And you never want to assume. I'd rather you ask questions. Like someone that lives far away, are you open? You can ask this question. Are you open to ever relocating? See, that requires vulnerability. That requires, oh my gosh, put your guard down, right? And that's kind of scary. So sometimes it's easier to go, bye, and I don't want you to. I know. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this is helping you, and I want you to truly do me a huge, wonderful favor and show me your love by writing a review. I know so many of you listen to this podcast. You send me DMs all the time, loving this podcast, but for some reason you won't write a review. So I want you to take a minute and go onto Apple Podcasts and write a review. It would mean the world to me. I'll drop the link here too, somewhere on the Spotify and YouTube or whatever. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it has to be crazy love or nothing. Till next time.